The gamer is a hard-to-please species. Let's take gaming laptops, for example. If you present a good one, they'll say it's expensive. Oh, no bro, for that money I'd rather buy a second-hand car. If it's cheap, that's still not right. Dude, what I'm going to do with this? It doesn't have, I don't know what video card or processor, and so on. And look, do you want to bet that in the comment section of this video, things will look about the same? Well, you can please everyone, and maybe you shouldn't even try. But what about $750 for a gaming laptop? How does that sound? And really, it's no joke. For those $750, you actually get a lot of laptop. Don't believe me? Well, look here, $300 per kilo. And not just that, but also a whopping 15-inch screen at 144 Hz, dedicated graphics card, an Intel processor, and generous cooling. And if it seems too good to be true, well, it's not. Ladies and gents, this is the Lenovo Lock 15i-AX9i, and it really is the beautiful and smart $750 gaming laptop. But jokes aside, let's still ask the $750 question. Did Lenovo manage to successfully juggle between an affordable price and good performance while still keeping the qualities of a proper laptop intact? Well, let's see. And I'm going to start abruptly with probably the most interesting feature of today's model, namely the hardware configuration inside. The model we tested is the base one, which comes equipped with an Intel Core i5 12450HX processor and a dedicated graphics card, also from Intel, the Arc A530M model. And it's the first laptop with Intel dedicated graphics that we tested, so we have a lot to discuss and dissect. But before we get there, let's first talk about the processor, which is nothing special. The CPU has 8 cores, of which 4 are performance cores and 4 are efficiency cores. It has 12 threads and a maximum boost frequency of 4.4 GHz. I don't expect it to break any records in terms of performance, but at least on paper it seems suitable for usual tasks and light gaming, exactly the target of this laptop. And the results from Cinebench R23 confirms my suspicions. 10,283 points in the multi-core test is not great, but not bad either. It's a mid-end processor from an older generation, but the price-performance ratio is not bad at all. In usual activities, from browsing to productivity like video or photo editing, the processor ran decently, so no worries there. Moreover, the advantage of a more subdued processor is efficiency. In the Cinebench stress test, that is, running it in loop, temperatures did not exceed 93 degrees Celsius at peak, and the average was around 80-85 degrees, a good performance to which the generous, and I dare say even oversized chassis for the theoretical performance of this configuration definitely contributes. The processor went into throttle now and then, very rarely, during the tens of minutes in which we ran Cinebench in loop, but each time the hefty cooling system quickly identified the problem, the fans revved up a bit and temperatures immediately went back to optimal limits. The observations related to temperatures are also matched one-to-one in frequencies. Throughout the test, all performance cores hovered around 4.2 GHz, very close to the 4.4 boost declared by Intel, and this little but valiant i5 did not pull more than 78 watt in the most intensive scenarios. But the interesting part comes now, because there's nothing unseen at an i5 on a laptop. But a dedicated graphics card, also from Intel, is something rarer. The Arc A530M model, hidden under the hood of this lock, has 4GB VRAM, a 128-bit bus and a TGP of up to 95 watt. Additionally, it supports DirectX 12.1 and is capable of ray tracing, but don't expect too much of an experience if you choose to activate this latter setting. Good news for content creators is that it comes with full support for AV1 with all the significant benefits when it comes to render times and image quality. To get an idea about performance and what the gaming experience will look like, we quickly installed 3D Mark and ran TimeSpy, where the result was 6,137 points, a value extremely close to that obtained with the laptop with RTX 3050. So, if you want to know an equivalent, that would be it, RTX 3050 laptop. It's also worth mentioning that before starting the tests, I activated the performance mode in the Lenovo Vantage application, and although the system warned me that the noise generated by the fans would be louder, I still think it's not noisier than any other gaming laptop in this segment. Of course, you can fine-tune and decrease the fan's speed if you think they're too noisy, but I wouldn't do that. I also believe that Lenovo smartly developed the cooling system and the optimizations behind it, so don't fix something that's not broken. And one more thing, the pièce de résistance of this puzzle is the LA AI chip under the hood. This is an artificial intelligence chip which has the role of monitoring and managing frequencies, power consumption and other such variables in such a way that the laptop is as powerful as possible but also cool. And to my pleasant surprise, the contribution of this addition is indeed felt. But we're not playing synthetic tests, so let's give it some real games to chew on. We installed various titles from CS2 to full-fledged AAA titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Forza Horizon 5 to take the laptop through all possible gaming scenarios. Because after all, it is a gaming laptop, even if it's cheap. And we start with a surprise for no one. The present model is a match made in heaven for esports games in 1080p, the native resolution of the display. CS2 runs very well at native resolution and maximum settings. Even in the most crowded deathmatch games, the laptop managed to keep the frame rate at a minimum of 120 FPS, and most of the time it hit towards 200. The situation is similar in Valorant, League of Legends and any other competitive game of this kind you can think of. So, if your main goal is to play popular competitive games with friends, this model will serve you well. Things change, however, when you give it more demanding games to run. I started Cyberpunk 2077 and with the settings turned almost to the max, I got about 40 FPS. An impressive value at first glance. In other words, this number of frames per second would not have been possible without XeSS, Intel's counterpart to Nvidia's DLSS or AMD's FSR. And the quality setting proved to be a decent compromise between image quality and performance. When I started ray tracing, however, big trouble. Even with XeSS set to balanced, from my point of view the lowest setting for 1080p gaming as performance looks terrible, the laptop managed only 11 FPS, somewhat predictably. It's not a laptop for ray tracing, that's clear, but for this money you can't expect some beast. But if you intend to tear through Forza Horizon 5, I have good news. The Lock 15 did honorably on high settings with XeSS on quality and hit the psychological threshold of 60 FPS exactly. Of course, there were small moments when the frame rate dropped below the magic number, but even so, the game ran constantly and without hiccups. The thing is, although Intel XeSS does a surprisingly good job of increasing the number of frames per second without affecting the graphical quality too much, Intel's proprietary technology is not available in too many titles, at least compared to the established rivals in the field. In the games where you don't have the option for XeSS, AMD FSR is the next best thing. And despite the fact that the game will look marginally worse, the FPS boost is still there, if not even greater. Moreover, AMD FSR 3, which is the RedCam's answer to Nvidia's frame generation, has finally appeared, and more developers will include it in their upcoming releases. And Intel's alternative is rumored to be in the pipeline, but I think it will take a while before it sees the light of day. However, in the gaming tests, I also noticed the first of many sacrifices made by Lenovo in order to keep the price as low as possible, compromises that you either accept or you buy something else at a higher price. The display is not by far the best I've seen. And not even the 1080p resolution is the problem. I actually consider it a good middle ground on a laptop, but the colors, which are quite washed out. You can get used to that, especially if you don't have a term of comparison, but placed next to other laptops with similar spec screens, the difference is noticeable. The 144Hz refresh rate washes out some sins, and I really can't fault this display in terms of speed and response time. I also appreciated the matte treatment over the entire surface of the display, which hides fingerprints well, and the brightness, which is okay. So, if it weren't for this letdown with the colors, I would have been more at peace with this screen. I have good things to say about the keyboard too, which feels very good for a budget laptop. The key travel is not the longest, which could confuse some writers, but the feeling is clicky and pleasant, and the matte plastic from which the keys are made seems durable and feels okay to the touch. Additionally, this Lenovo Lock has a full numpad, and even though these keys are a bit cramped, it's not the end of the world, and I understand why they had to do this. When it comes to the touchpad, I have mixed feelings. On the one hand, I like that Lenovo didn't skimp and included a generous touchpad. On the other hand, it doesn't do great at palm rejection, and you'll sometimes find yourself in the situation where your cursor is crazily moving across the screen while you're typing on the keyboard. Moving on, I like the texture of this touchpad, but I hate the way the click feels. It's not sharp at all, and it's also quite noisy when pressed. I would categorize this touchpad as functional, it gets the job done, but my recommendation is to use the services of a mouse, especially since we're dealing with a gaming laptop after all. One thing that I'm pleasantly surprised by, if not downright delighted, is the build quality. Despite being a budget laptop and therefore all panels are plastic, the whole ensemble feels well put together and unexpectedly pleasant to touch. Of course, not everything is perfect, the keyboard area flexes a bit if you put more pressure, but not so much that you would feel it when typing normally. Would I have liked a metal lid and a bit more rigidity in the keyboard area? Sure. But I think these are necessary sacrifices for a lower cost, and overall, there really aren't any problems. I also have to praise the hinge, or rather hinges, as it has two on the sides, and they didn't give me the impression of fragility. Moreover, this lock gets bonus points for the fact that you can open the lid with one hand without needing to hold the base with the other. And now let's discuss another important issue, namely the ports. Fortunately, the lock keeps Lenovo's good tradition of ergonomic placement of these. Although it doesn't have side vents for cooling, this lock uses only the space on the right side for ports. We find here an USB Type-A 3.2 Gen 1 and an USB-C 3.2 Gen 2, a 3.5mm combo jack for headphones and microphone, and an e-shutter which deactivates the 720p webcam with a simple switch. It's a welcome addition, and I think it would have been even better if we also had a hardware toggle that could also turn off the built-in microphone. But I'm asking for too much. And now let me tell you why I think the lock is very well thought in terms of connectivity. As with many other Lenovo gaming laptops, the main I/O panel of this one is on the back, and I must admit I love this. Being a gaming laptop, most of the time you'll keep it on a desk with cables plugged in, so it's a big advantage to have all these cables connected at the back without getting in your way. As for the types of ports available, we have here a charging port, two USB Type-A ports, a Gigabit Ethernet port, and an HDMI 2.1 port for external monitors. That charging port on the back is extremely important because you will use it almost permanently. In our tests, the laptop lasted about 2.5 hours in usual tasks such as web browsing or editing documents in Microsoft Word, which is not great. From here, we deduce that if you want to take it with you on the move, no matter how short that trip might be, you need the charger with you. And when the charger alone weighs about half a kilo, well, that can be a problem. But an even heavier problem is the laptop itself. This model weighs around 2.5 kilograms, so if you have back problems, don't strain yourself with it in a backpack. That's why I'm not in a hurry to recommend it to students, for example. It's too heavy to be comfortably carried in a backpack or bag. And since we're here, let's talk about design. I was impressed by how this budget model looks, and if you don't know exactly what it is, you can easily confuse it with a more expensive Legion. I dare say it's even elegant and discreet at the same time. Of course, that's a plus or a minus, depending on how you want a gaming laptop to look. But I think the silver finish looks pretty good on this imposing chassis. Another observation of the design would be this. The laptop looks a bit old school, and again, this can be good or bad depending on everyone's tastes. And that's because of this tail extending behind of the unfolded screen. And speaking of that, I also noticed that although the display has modern edges, meaning very narrow, the frame thickens substantially at the bottom, again a feature that reminds us of gaming laptops from the past. The good part is that, unlike many other contemporary models, at least in this case the hot air is not exhausted at the base of the screen. Duh! The belly of the laptop has some sturdy rubber supports that raise it nicely off the surface of the desk, which allows it to breathe freely underneath through the generous intakes perforated in the back panel. And the hot air is expelled through two hefty exhausts located to the left and right of the I/O panel, far from the body of the laptop. The cooling, I say again, is oversized. It is much above the needs of the hardware configuration of this model and therefore excellent. And now, let's draw a conclusion. Despite some predictable flaws, the low price makes this Lenovo Lock 15i-AX9i an undeniable best buy. It has more than enough performance for the most popular esports titles and copes quite well even with some more intensive AAA titles, especially if you don't mind the frame rate per second at 60 FPS or just below, and a slightly lower image quality by activating XeSS if you want the FPS to stay steady. It has extraordinary cooling, which manages to keep the components in check without any trouble, and even if the colors of the screen are a bit washed out, the 144Hz refresh rate saves the day, especially in competitive shooters. The battery life leaves something to be desired, but considering how heavy the laptop is, it doesn't seem designed for portability anyway. Overall, at $750, I think it's an excellent option for a gamer on a budget, but who wants a good bang for the buck and a decent gaming experience. And now, you tell me in the comments, do you like it or not? Is it worth the money or not? I'm really curious to read your opinions, and with that being said, please subscribe to Techniqualities, and I wish you happy gaming.